Alright, this is just another quick video. Getting a lot of questions. I figured I would just make a quick video and answer them. One of the biggest questions I get when I show off my van and talk about my adventures is, how do you deal with the cops? The whole time I was in California, I got pulled over twice because my plates, they said my plates weren't coming back as registered. They came back as non-existent, which was false because I had already paid for my plates for 2 years. They were either not typing MO from Missouri and trying like MI or something else, or they were just really bored. But I think they just wanted to talk. That's when you're out driving early in the morning and you're from out of state, cops are bored. So that was that. Camping wise, 3 times did I ever get questioned by the cops. The first time I wasn't even actually camping. I was waiting for a friend who worked overnight and I was allowed to sleep in his parking lot, but I couldn't go there until he got to work and I was exhausted, so I pulled into a parking area about half a mile from his work to just wait, and I ended up falling asleep behind the wheel and the cops knocking on my window. She was doing a drive around and wanted to make sure everything was okay, and I explained to her that I was just waiting on a friend who worked not too far away and waiting for his text, and I'm just tired, so I must have fell asleep. And she was really cool with it. You know, what helps me out is that my plates are from out of state, so my big excuse was I'm just visiting. I'm just visiting. I have nowhere else to go. I was just waiting for my buddy, and it was fine. The second time, where was I? Oh, the second time was at a Costco parking lot. It was a lot of people parked there. It's a big open parking lot, and they had like a McDonald's, McDonald's, and a donut place. I don't think it wasn't a Dunkin' Donut. It was, I can't think of the other one, but it was open 24 hours, and a lot of people parked there overnight. And I parked there, but I parked one aisle too close to the Costco, I guess. So the overnighters who were leaving the Costco saw my truck there, and they called the cops because I was a suspicious vehicle parked in their parking lot. Which, when the cops came knocking on the windows, I hear them talking, and I would have stayed silent, but my dog wolfed. And when he wolfed, the jig's up, because, there's a dog in there, and then I let them know I was going to come out, and I have a dog. I let them know I have a dog, I'm going to come out, the dog is detained, just give me a moment. And they asked what I was doing, and, I make up another excuse. I'm, just traveling through. I was too tired to drive back into town, I'm staying with a friend that lives on the other side of the bay. And, he was a younger guy, he was pretty cool with it. He was like, alright, he's like, well, the thing is, you're too close to the Costco. Costco doesn't allow it. He's like, but if you're gonna risk it, I would rather you didn't, but if you pull over one aisle that way, you should be fine for the night. So I thanked him, and got back in the truck, pulled over over one aisle, turned the truck off, got back in the back of the truck, went to sleep with no problems. I actually stayed there off and on, not too much, but off and on when I was on that side of the bay. And the last time was actually right before I came back to Missouri. There was an area behind there's like a Petco shopping center. So there was like a Petco, and a bunch of other little shoe store, and a bunch of other buildings, and then behind it there was a few parking spots, and it kind of backed up to like a highway, but there was a wall, but there was a few parking areas and a little grassy area, and no one ever went back there, and there's no signs that say no parking, no nothing. And I had to turn around because my radiator started leaking real bad, and my friend was gonna come take a look at it when he got off work, so that was the only place we could meet. So I pulled up back there, and I parked the truck, and I was exhausted. And he came over, and it found out it wasn't the radiator, it was my water pump, and, I went ahead and went and bought radiator, what do you call it? Stuff that you pour in to keep the tank clogged up until I can get back home where my brother can help me change out the water pump. Anyway, so he came and looked at it, it was getting sunset, he had to go, which was fine. I crawled in the back of the truck, and I was just, kicked back like this, my phone right there, watching movies, and I fell asleep. Which is no big deal, but I woke up at midnight and I looked around and I realized where I was, but I was so tired I didn't care. I just pulled the dog in, turned everything off, and I went back to sleep. But about 3 o'clock in the morning, and I hear the cops beating on the thing. Apparently one of the alarms went off in one of the buildings, and they were, looking around first. If the alarms didn't go off, I would have been fine. So of course they're, what are you doing back here? What are you doing? Blah, blah, blah. And I don't think they believed my story, but it wasn't even much of a story. It was like, well, I'm headed back to Missouri and I had truck troubles and I parked here and I fell asleep. And, you know, I was like, I'm waiting for Walmart to open so I can buy the supplies I need to fix my truck up so I can go home. And the younger cop was real nice. He was understanding, because I wasn't lying. This was actually truth. And, you know, he was understanding, but I think he was shadowing the older cop. And the older cop was pardon my language, the older cop was a dick. He was in your face. I think he thought I was a druggie, homeless, no good for nothing. He's not gonna take he was very, you could tell he just wanted to bust you, and he didn't have any reason to, though. So after a good scolding, if I'm waiting for Walmart to open, I need to go to Walmart and park in their parking lot. So I was like, fine. Their Walmarts there, most of them are not 24/7 Walmarts. You know, they're open 24 hours. They close at a certain time. The parking lots are labeled with no overnight parking signs. But you know what? It was already 3 o'clock in the morning. By the time I got there, it was 4 o'clock. I slept in the cab of my truck until Walmart opened, got what I needed, and I left. Those were about the 3 times. The good excuses I found out is, if you're out of state and you stay clean, you can't look like a hobo. I mean, you have to actually keep a good presence to yourself. But if you're out of state, always use the excuse that you're just traveling through and you got tired. I mean, what are they going to do? They're going to bust you for not staying on the road and hurting somebody? Never park in the same place twice. Well, use your own sense of judgment for this. When I was traveling on one side of the bay versus the other, when I was staying in California, I stayed around North Cal mostly. There were certain places I would visit, kind of off pattern, but kind of in a circle type deal. Like I'd stay one here, one there. I was always out before dawn. I hated getting up at 5:30 in the morning, but my alarm was set for 5:30. I was up. Got cleaned up, got the dog in the cab. We went to our second spot. Our second spot is usually a park, because parks usually open by 6 a.m. So 6 a.m., hit the park, take the dog out, crawled back in the truck. I went back to sleep. You know, I usually took the dog to the dog park half the time, but yeah, we went to the park for a few hours, come back, I would go back to sleep. There was a few businesses, even though they say 24 hours in California, that doesn't necessarily mean you're still allowed to park there, but my truck blends in very well. It was very easy for me just to park, keep an eye out, crawl into my truck, go to sleep. No one ever knows I'm there. Active communities you have to be careful with, because a lot of places, again, like I said, I stayed in California mostly, so I'll keep going back to that, but in California especially is a very active community. People are out jogging, and one guy was watering his grass, and at like 1 o'clock in the morning. It was so retarded. So yeah, you have to try to watch the people who are out. You don't want to be suspicious. You don't want to draw attention to yourself. You don't want people to look at you. Always pick up your trash. Never leave a mess behind, because if you start leaving trails that you were there, people are going to know to look around at where the stuff is coming from. Don't park in neighborhoods that are too rich and fancy. And for your safety, don't park in neighborhoods that are really bad news and rundown. If you ever look on like Google Maps, if you have the opportunity or the access to look at Google Maps to find a place to park, try to find those places with the mid-streets. Like you'll have housing on one side, housing on another, but then you have like the connector streets, which just have like side fences. There are no front doors, back doors, it's just side fence and side fence. Those are my preferred choice. I would always like try to park with my tailgate facing a car that might be there, but that's not always an option. But if you crawl in late enough at night, like usually, there were sometimes I couldn't park until almost midnight. But, you know, usually after 10, when it gets dark, depending on the time of year. And then, like I said, as long as you're up before dawn, no one really knows you're there. Nobody cares. Just don't make a mess and don't make things a habit. If you have any other questions, I guess feel free to ask and comment. Send me a message. That's all I really have on that one. I don't know what else. So yeah, just try to be as less noticeable as possible. There was like 6 places I really liked to park, but I didn't park one place every Monday, one place every Tuesday. I always alternated in some fashion, so I didn't want to really note that I was there. Yeah, clean up after yourself. Don't make a big ruckus. Train your dog not to bark as people pass by the windows, and good luck. Be safe.